Welcome back, my friends, to the dratethehate.com podcast. I am Wilt from wiltsworld.com, and this is going to be episode 20 of our Derate the Hate podcast. And today we're going to talk about diversity, but not the diversity that you might think about. So first, I want to say thank you for all the support that we've had up to this point. We've got 20 episodes, or this is going to be our 20th episode in the box, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the support. If you have not done so far, share it with your friends, subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your audio, and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any place where you're on social media. Check us out. Follow us for the latest podcast from the dratethehate.com podcast. But first, one question. Maybe it's a two-part question. What have you done today to make the world a better place? What have you done today to make your life a better life? And the reason I ask those questions is because it's up to you to be the change that you want to see in the world. And the Derate the Hate podcast is all about bettering the world one attitude at a time. So with that said, we're going to jump right into episode 20 of our Derate the Hate podcast, and it's going to be diversity of thoughts and ideas. Diversity of thoughts and ideas is not something that's often talked about because a lot of people can't handle the diversity of thoughts and ideas. They hear the word diversity and they think, oh, well, yeah, diversity. Diversity is great. We got to be diverse. Everything's got to be diverse. We got to be diverse by race and sex and origin and things like that. They're always talking about striving for diversity. But when it comes to real diversity, which is the diversity of thoughts and ideas, a lot of people get freaked out. They don't want to hear thoughts and ideas that don't coincide with their thoughts and ideas. But have you ever thought about it and thought about why? Why do people not like to hear thoughts and ideas that do not coincide with the thoughts and ideas that they have? Well, basically it's because they feel vulnerable. They feel vulnerable to changing their mind, and it makes them scared. You know, what's the whole concept of being vulnerable? Vulnerable means something might happen. Something might happen that I am not comfortable with. Something might happen that I don't know how I will react to it. So I'm vulnerable and now I'm scared. And there's so many people out there right now that we live in one of the most polarizing times when it comes to different thoughts and ideas. And there's so many people out there right now that just have the incapability of understanding or not even understanding, the incapability of even listening to and being exposed to other people's thoughts and ideas if they do not coincide with theirs. So, okay, back in episode 18, we talked about getting out of the box, not letting people put labels on you and being locked into a certain mentality about being within a certain label or a predefined demographic of people that just because I'm part of some predefined label, put in some box, I have to think a certain way. And then in episode 19, we talked about political theater and how political theater has become the real hate speech, in my opinion. These politicians get on TV, and the media is very complicit in this. The politicians get on TV, and they just use the most vile hyperbole and rhetoric to divide the people because that's how they know they keep their power. Well, in what I'm talking about today, diversity of thought and diversity of ideas, we have to get back to a point. Like I said, we're at the most polarized times in most people who are listening to this, but at the most polarized times that any of us have seen in our lifetime. And a great portion of that is due to the fact that we have been conditioned to completely shut out other people's thoughts and other people's ideas. I mean, you just look at I always call it, the dumpster fire of lies, misinformation, and hate. Social media. Social media is a perfect example of where people have started to shun other people of opposing ideas. They have taken and seen people that they've probably been friends with their whole life, or they've seen family members that come up with an opposing viewpoint, and they unfriend them, or they block them, or they unfollow them. Because why? Because they feel vulnerable. Like I said, they're scared. They cannot deal with the idea that somebody else has an opposing viewpoint. And it's gone so far as to, lately we've seen different hate groups that say silence is violence. Silence is violence. Silence is not violence. Silence is the fact that I want to be left alone. I have my own opinions. I don't want to, if I put my opinion out there, I don't want to be beat down or beat into submission because I think something different than you. And I'm not saying that's my style, because obviously I voice my opinion all the time. I have a Wilkes Opinion website. I've got my Derate the Hate podcast. I've got wilkesworld.com. But the point that I'm trying to make is there are a lot of people out there that, frankly, they just want to be left alone. And their opinion is theirs. And they don't want to be forced into speaking up, because they know that there's a lot of people out there right now that, I mean, let's face it, we've got people marching into restaurants and shouting down people while they're trying to have dinner with their family, and screaming at people. And if you don't comply with our thoughts and ideas, we're going to destroy you in one way or another. I talk about the cancel culture in a previous episode as well. Silence is not violence. Silence is, I just want to be left alone. I want to live my life. I live in a free country. I should be able to live my life the way that I choose to live my life. And I don't want to, I will listen to your opinion if you want to speak to me in a logical and rational and civil manner. That's no problem. I'll listen to anybody, But when it comes to the idea that we have people, like I said, marching into restaurants or going into somebody else's public forum and shouting them down when they're there to make a speech, or worse yet, storming the building when somebody's supposed to be giving a speech that they've been invited to speak somewhere, or you've got college campuses where people have threatened violence and in a way that they've had to cancel speakers that are coming. That kind of thing, that stands against everything this country was ever meant to be. And we've got to get past that. We've got to get past the idea that we can allow a small portion of our population, violent extremists, to shout us down in a public square or intimidate us into conforming with their thoughts and their ideas. No, we have to have a free market of ideas. We have to have a serious conversation in this country about having a civil dialogue where both sides can speak their mind in a civil, rational, and logical way. We've got to get rid of the violence. We've got to get rid of the shouting down. We've got to get rid of the so-called safe spaces. All that stuff is garbage. That is not how we live in a civil society. People have to live in like I said, a free market of ideas, a free market of thoughts and ideas that we can share civilly amongst each other and come up with win-win ideas. One of our previous episodes talked about the concept of searching for the win-win and synergizing, parts of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. If one side is constantly shouting down the other and preventing the other from speaking, you'll never get a win-win that way. And most oftentimes, you're just going to create a bunch more enemies, because it just does not work that way. We cannot do that and continue to believe that we live in a free society where people can live amongst each other civilly. So, diversity of thought, diversity of ideas. This diversity is the real diversity. Skin color means nothing. Skin color means nothing. Origin means nothing. Sex means nothing. We have to get past all of that garbage, because that's what it is. It's garbage. What we need for really to be a really diverse society is a diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, and then we can start to work on commonalities amongst all of us, because that's where the real diversity is. That's where the real diversity needs to be. And if we ever plan to ever live amongst each other civilly again, we have to be diverse in our ideas and our thoughts. So I don't need to get too much further into that. There's not a whole lot more I can say about that. But what I can say is, like I always say every day, what have you done to make the world a better place? What have you done to make your life a better life? Because if you're shouting down somebody else because you don't like their thoughts and ideas, you're making it worse. If you're shouting down somebody else, or you're shutting out a family member because they have a different thought or idea than you do, you're making your life worse. Not theirs, because they can do what they need to do. You're making your life worse by shutting out somebody that you used to care about or that you love because they think and have different ideas than you do. That is not the way to live your life, and you need to get beyond it. You need to get back to the mentality that people will have different thoughts and ideas, and that is a good thing. And then you work for commonalities. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap that up. That's going to be our common or our diversity episode, episode 20 of the Derate the Hate podcast, diversity of thoughts and ideas. And I'm going to jump into our feel-good story of the week. This story really stood out to me because I thought it was absolutely awesome. It combined a couple things that I really love. Well, actually, three things that I really love. It combined a young child, an animal, and cops. And you know, the three of them, very big parts of my life. I love it. And this story just kind of, it jumped out to me. As soon as I saw it, I knew I was going to talk about it in our podcast. So this week's feel-good story is about Miles Hornschmeyer, and I'm probably saying that wrong. I probably butchered it, but Brown County, Ohio, a youngster named Miles Hornschmeyer was awarded a new scooter by the Mount Orab Police Department because, get this, a couple weeks ago, he was on his way, he was out riding his scooter around, and, you know, like little boys do, riding his scooter around, and he comes across his injured little cat, and you know, he stops to help out this cat, and I'm just picturing this in my head, and he picks up this cat because he knows the cat is hurt, and he wants to take it home and take care of it, and then he tries to grab his scooter, and he can't grab his scooter because he can't do both. So young Miles ditches his scooter, leaves his scooter where he found the cat, and he walks and takes the cat home so he could take care of the cat. Well, then he goes back to grab his scooter. Lo and behold, the scooter is missing. The scooter's been stolen. It's been taken by somebody. I mean, they probably figured it was abandoned. Who knows? You know, the scooter's gone. Well, story gets out, of what happened, and the Mount Orab Police Department decides to award Miles with a new scooter because they know this young man has done something extraordinary. And you know, if anybody knows me or if anybody's listened to our podcast, you know, we love it when, you know, ordinary people do extraordinary things. And this is a story that most people would probably never hear. But you know what? Young Mr. Miles needs a huge attaboy, and he's going to get it from me because, you know what? He ditched his scooter, and he did the right thing, and he picked up this little injured kitten, took it home to take care of it, and he lost his scooter because of it. And then the beautiful people from the Mount Orab Police Department decided to award that young man with a new scooter. So I love the story. It's not a story that most people would ever get to hear, but you heard it here, and I'll post a link to that story in the show notes. I like it. I think it's awesome. Way to go, Miles, and way to go, Mount Orab Police Department for acknowledging a job well done by that young man. So. And that's how I'm going to wrap up this week's podcast. Episode 20 of the DerateTheHate.com podcast. And diversity of thoughts and ideas. It's the only diversity that really, really matters. And just keep that in mind the next time you hear something that you don't necessarily agree with from somebody that you care about. We've got to have that diversity. We've got to have the ability to disagree and disagree agreeably. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up like I always do. I'm going to tell you, when you get back out there amongst the people, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember, it's up to you to make every day the day that you want it to be. I'm going to back on out of here, but I do want to say from all of us here at Wilkes World that we want to express a very heartfelt thank you for taking the time to listen. Share us wherever you can, and we'll catch you next week.